Rishwain here with my co-host and co-founder, Ivan Raiklin. As some of you may be aware, LegalTechLIVE has been going on for about 10 months now, and we've got Ivan joining us internationally. This is, I think, our first major international from several different countries here, because we got Prash Shenoy joining us from India. Ivan is in the Middle East, and Josh, where are you joining us from?
I'm in Southern California, Santa Ana.
Okay, all right. So we got two California guys and two people abroad right now. This is great. Again, I'm Nick Rishwain. I work in legal tech field. I went to law school. I've never practiced law, and I am a recovering government employee who's been in the legal tech field for about 6 years. My co-host Ivan, please introduce yourself.
Hey guys, it's been a couple of weeks since I've been on the show. Unfortunately, I've been traveling. So my name is Ivan Raiklin, and angel investor, startup advisor, and also I'm an attorney, non-practicing, similar to Nick. And I have an affinity for tech, everything tech, and everything related to legal tech, and then also essentially anything related to the most cutting edge of tech, and that's moving into virtual reality, augmented reality. Our interests overlap significantly with Nick, and I'm glad you guys are here on the show. We can talk legal tech. Yes,
and excellent. Joining us today, we have Prash Shenoy and Josh Blandi from UniCourt. And I was lucky enough to meet Josh and Prash's team at Legal Tech Show in San Francisco, and I was really wowed by their search in legal analytics using the Pacer system for federal cases, and there are quite a few states that you guys already have access to. I'm not sure who wants to take the lead here to really give us an introduction to what UniCourt is doing as far as legal analytics, search, track, manage, and so forth. Who should we start with here?
Josh is going to take it.
I'm going to flip a coin. There you go, Josh.
I'll take that.
All right.
So maybe we can talk a little bit, maybe the evolution of UniCourt, kind of where we came from, and then kind of what we're currently doing now, if that would be okay with you, Nick.
Perfect.
So I'm Josh Blandi, one of the co-founders, chief product officer for UniCourt, and we also have Prash Shenoy, who's also one of the co-founders and our CTO. And basically this originally initially started as a project. I had a debt relief company that part of our offering was in helping people get out of debt was to be able to, if they got sued while they were in the program, that we would help them with the defense on that. And what we found was that these people turned out to be great clients. They were really loyal. You know, they'd seen the worst thing happen to them, being sued on their debt, and it was able to get resolved, and we had great results with it. So that kind of started our whole search for, you know, how do we find more legal data, specifically from the state courts? Mm-hmm. And what we really found on this exercise when we started searching for that is that really there wasn't much access to it, period.
Right.
And that's when we started our process of, well, why don't we get court records, mine these court records, and why don't we find these people ourselves? And that's really kind of what started the evolution of UniCourt is we started aggregating these records initially from the state courts. We went the hard route, and later on we went on to the federal. So in doing that, you know, we had this massive repository of data, and we thought, you know, in order for people to really use this, we need to build some kind of platform that can allow people to interact with this data, so they can research it, they can track this information, they can manage it, and ultimately they can pull analytics from data.
Okay.
So that really started about 2011. We officially formed UniCourt in 2014 to make a serious go at this. And where we are today is, you know, UniCourt really is a nationwide case research, tracking, management, and analytics platform that integrates court data from Pacer, federal courts, and state courts into kind of a single cloud-based application. And ultimately, what it helps do for people, it helps organizations reduce their costs and increase their productivity by centralizing all of this, you know. And, you know, kind of the vision for UniCourt, you know, kind of where we're going at it is, you know, ultimately we want to be able to create a place where all this legal data is centralized, it's structured, and we'll talk a little bit more about this as the program proceeds, but most of the data out there is not very well structured. So we've structured this and we've made this data now more collaborative and interactive. And we kind of see a place where people can come and do all this, and a place where people can now contribute to the data and take from it. And that's kind of where the crowdsourcing would come in on this data is, as a part of this platform, we want people to be able to find what they're looking for. And if they can't find it, they can contribute to that repository to share with everyone else.
Okay. And I want you to kind of, for our replay viewers and anybody who may be listening live, the difficulty with the state courts is that there's just no uniformity in the way the data is collected, correct?
That's right. Let me give you a few examples of some of the challenges. Let's just take case types. You know, we found that once you cross from one jurisdiction to the next, there is really no uniformity on how they label their case types, or if they even label them at all. And to take something very simple like a personal injury case, for example, you know, that really may represent thousands of different case types across the various courts that we cover. So one of the things we do after we aggregate this data is we standardize it. Okay. And if it wasn't for the standardization, ultimately we wouldn't be able to pull analytics or make this data very usable. Because if you were trying to find, say, a certain case type, you would literally have to collect thousands of cases to pull all the case types relating to personal injury. Okay. So to give you an idea of the scale, so we aggregate data from well over 40 courts, almost 50 courts. We standardize that data. And then and some of the things that we standardize would be things like case type, case status. We even standardize things like the party type. So if the defendant, plaintiff, a respondent, a cross-defendant, counter-defendant, and so forth. Because ultimately that is going to prove pretty useful when you're trying to pull analytics to say, hey, you know, I want to see the results of certain cases that involve this party as a defendant, for example.
So Josh, from your experience, which states or jurisdictions are the most difficult to curate data from?
There's some real problems out of Texas. For example, out of Texas, they don't have any type of standardization. So it's really just what the clerk thinks that the complaint represents. So it really is, each case type is unique.
Especially if you look at Harris County, the case types that they include also include the party names, for example. So you end up with so many thousands of case types when it comes to, you know, collections or small claims.
Okay, and they don't distinguish between a small claims, like we have limited cases in California. You know, we have small claims, then we have limited civil, and then we have those that are over a certain amount. Do they not distinguish that way in Texas?
Not typically. What they'll do is they'll break it up. So there's a couple of challenges. First is California is kind of nice because it has a consolidated court system. So basically, there is no municipal courts, there is no justice of the peace courts. It's all the Superior Court consolidated system.
Correct.
So when you get to something like Texas, you have, you know, your justice of the peace courts, which are very similar to your small claims courts. You'll have from there, you'll have your county courts, and then from there, you'll have your district courts. And the county and district overlap in a few things, but, you know, for example, one may handle like marriage and probate, and the other may handle like, you know, civil unlimited cases. And then you start to move up into the appellate and ultimately to the Supreme Court. So you take something like Texas or Pennsylvania or a lot of other states, they have really a lot of different court systems, all talking a different language, and each county is talking its own language.
Okay.
So that was a real challenge for us. We spent many years. We've gotten that process almost entirely automated at this point, so that we're using a process to be able to categorize and standardize that using automation. one of the other things, Nick, that we've done that's really unique is we're also normalizing our party types, or I'm sorry, our parties, attorneys, and judges. So therefore, when you're trying to pull up cases involving a certain attorney or a certain judge or a certain party, for example, you're going to be able to pull up all the relevant cases for that. And that may kind of sound simple, but the reality is, if you look at the amount of variations a unique entity may have in terms of what it's been named by the court across jurisdictions, it's quite vast. Take for example something simple like Citibank. Their Citibank may represent hundreds, if not thousands, of different names. Citibank NA, Citibank, Citibank America, Citibank, South Dakota, right? So part of the challenge with the analytics is being able to normalize our parties. So when people are looking for a John A. Smith that's an attorney, they're going to be able to actually find the cases involved with John A. Smith or law firm, for example.
And this was the thing, and Prash probably recalls, you may recall too, Josh, that I was really wowed with at the Legal Tech show when you guys were able to identify by attorney name the number of cases that a particular attorney had filed. And this really wowed me from more of a consumer or business standpoint. If this firm is telling me, yeah, we can handle your case, your patent infringement case, as I recall, this is the way you guys described it to me. We can handle your patent infringement case. We've got Ivan Raiklin who can go ahead and do that for you. And then you go and you do some research on Ivan, and it looks like he's filed 3,000 personal injury complaints in his lifetime, or in the LA County Court, but he's only done really 3 patent infringement cases. Now that, to me, from a consumer standpoint or a business standpoint, looking at who we want to retain, this was really, really wowed me.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. There's a couple of use cases. There's the consumer use case that you just hit on, where they're trying to see how much experience they have, which is very similar to the use case that, say a client came to their attorney and said, hey, I'm being sued by this plaintiff, and be able to look to see what the history is of that plaintiff with that type of either cause of action, case type, or complaint is, I think, pretty telling. I think before it was very anecdotal, where people would, ask a friend that knew that attorney, or maybe that attorney they went to law school with, and
right.
Or maybe they know a judge that knew that attorney, for example. And it was all just anecdotal. And now it's, you can really drill down to see the true experience that people have in certain case types. And what you'll find is that with a lot of practices, they may handle a few different case types that they just, by random coincidence, that got brought in over the years, but most of them you'll see they have a specific practice, whether it be marriage, whether it be personal injury, whether it be this or that. And what's the other cool thing we're building, besides being able to tell you the types of cases they've been involved in? Ultimately where we're going with this is we want to be able to tell the results of those cases. So, for example, we want to say, hey, with this case type and this attorney, before this judge, what was the likelihood that this judge, granted this demur or granted this motion for summary judgment or denied it? Or, how likely is this attorney to go to go to trial, or to get a judgment, or to get a dismissal or settlement? So those are some of the metrics that we're starting to measure, is to say, okay, we know the types of cases he handled. Now what does he have a proclivity to do in those types of cases?
That I think is fascinating. And I think part of what really fascinated me was just from the analytical standpoint. I was like, man, I cannot believe we're able to do this now. That we can have, that somebody has found a way, has access to being able to tell me the types of cases that you have, not only the types of cases, but then you were able to drill down and say, well, what was their success rate like within, or what you're working on in front of this judge, or in this case type, what was your success like? From a consumer or from a businessman standpoint, I thought this is pretty impressive stuff. who is you going to be your target?
Analytics of the experience level of each of the attorneys.
Right, right. Who will your target market be for? Just stay on this part of the product for a while longer. Who will your target market be for that particular product? The information on an attorney, because I think opposition counsel is going to be just as interested in that information.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, obviously, I think law firms will see immediate use of it. General counsel for corporations, businesses will have a benefit on using this. So those are really the two main factors in terms of kind of predicting outcome. But there's also kind of a wider approach to what we're working on, and that would be more for trending, like general analytics. So, for example, we were working with some very large insurance companies that wanted to plug in personal injury data and other lawsuit data into their actuarials to try to be able to predict like the cost of cases, how long do personal injury cases take to settle or to resolve. And so that's kind of some of the other thing is the business intelligence aspect of this.
Yes.
To be able to feed this data to businesses that, where their data or where their business in some way, shape, or form interacts with law. And I think there's some really great insight that can be drawn from that. I mean, it could be something completely removed, like, for example, maybe a lagging indicator in our economy is how many collection lawsuits are filed by banks as a confirmation of we're past the worst of it in the economy or not, right?
Right.
So that's some of the other things that we're starting to work on is on each entity, party entity, we're starting to be able to tag them as, hey, is this a bank, a financial institution? Is this an insurance company? Is this an individual? Is this this type of industry? So that later on you could see trends within industries. How often are people involved in environmental cases in the environmental industry, for example? Are these types of cases trending up or down? Who are the companies that have a higher proclivity to be involved in litigation in environmental, for example?
Interesting.
So that's kind of really where we're going with it. The unfortunate thing is, until we started aggregating this data really hasn't been accessible in any large scale to members of the public,
right,
to professionals. And I really foresee a world, 10, 15 years from now where this data that comes from courts is really a collaborative, interactive set of data where, for example, when you file a case, all the parties involved in that case, get notice, get updated, get fed this information. It's not only just a one-way street where it's coming from the courts, where things that are being filed also get pushed to the courts. And we have a more standardized form of our docket entry system. I think originally when courts set up their docket entry systems, it really was just for tracking the proceedings of the court. I don't think they ever envisioned what they could actually, what knowledge they could derive from, this type of information on court proceedings.
Okay. This is, so was this your idea? Just backtrack here a little bit. Was this the idea? And let me pause right there. Can either of you see Ivan? Can anybody see?
I can.
You guys can see Ivan? Okay,
Yep.
so it's just not showing on my screen. I don't know if I'll be able to hear him either. So, Ivan, just text me when you have.
Yeah, I'm right here. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yep, I can hear you. Okay, so it's just not showing on my screen. That's okay. It's as long as we can hear you. Was the debt collection that the debt collection work that you did this come to how you could really aggregate all this data? Did that spur the idea, or did you have one idea that you went with and then many other aggregation ideas and uses for the data kind of were created on that, based off of the one idea to become UniCourt, and then have many other uses for the data? Let me know if that's a clear question for you, Josh.
Yeah, I think we had initially started with trying to find people involved in lawsuits with from banks was the initial goal when we started this, 5 years ago. But, as we began to pull the data and see the problems with it, I mean, very quickly we had to make a decision on this wasn't going to be just a project. This was going to take some serious capital and some serious effort to be able to work with this data. And I think at that point, when we started seeing the variety in the data, we started seeing the type of information in this data and what could be done with it, I think is where we kind of made a critical juncture to say, hey, this is a whole separate business. This is a whole separate need within the community. And let's do it.
Yeah. And I've already got this thought. Ivan, pop in if you'd like. I just want to say, my day-to-day work is in the expert witness field. And experts generally are hired by a particular type of attorney, depending on their expertise. And this may be one thing that our members would be interested in the future. Boy, I'd love to know who the attorneys are in my region who are doing certain types of cases, so that I can get myself in front of those types of people and maybe attend the particular bar association function, or include them on my newsletter. So that's just one more item that kind of went through my mind as another option. So a lot of different business options that are law related come out of having this data easily accessible.
Yeah, that you make a great point. I'll hit on 2 points. We actually had got that tossed to us about expert witnesses. Like, hey, wouldn't it be nice to be able to know how many cases an expert witness has been involved in, and what cases were they? So you could actually see his track record.
Mm-hmm.
So that was like a really interesting thing that was brought to us by one of our clients that does a lot of work with the NRA. Mm-hmm. They were looking for expert witnesses related to Second Amendment rights stuff, and so that's I love that use case. I wish I could find more people that would want to use that, because I see tremendous potential in that. The other point you hit on was, I'm sorry, what was the other point you hit on besides the expert witness?
The expert witness actually using your service to identify the right types of attorneys.
Absolutely. And the other thing that people use the system for is, one of the great things about the platform is, oftentimes when you create a search, with the ability to search today, you can now create a lot more complicated searches. And sometimes these searches can take a while to build. Mm-hmm. And so one of the things we allow people to do is build really complicated searches, looking for lots of different criterias, parties, and so forth. And then you can automate that search. Basically, you can save that search and automate it so it runs periodically whenever you want it to run. And this could be looking for things as simple as, like, certain cases that interest you and your subject matter. It could be things like, hey, I'm going to load a list of all my clients, and I'm going to look for new cases filed against them, so I'm the first attorney to reach out to them when they get sued.
Right.
So that happens a lot with larger corporations. They don't just have one or two attorneys; they have many attorneys that handle work for them. And oftentimes, we find it's just the attorney that reaches out first to ask for the business. So those are some really good use cases on how people can use the tool to find more business, or to find, entities that are involved in something that interests you.
Much more targeted than your standard advertising would be, or standard SEO. This would be a much more targeted approach for many different types of law-related businesses.
Yeah, one of the things that I didn't touch on, maybe Prashant, do you want to talk a little bit about is this highly related to the Party Finder?
Sure. One of the things, this is the first use of, this is how the project actually started. So basically, Josh's company, the debt relief company which we started with, wanted to find the defendants who were being sued for defaulting on their loans, so that they could reach out to them, so that they can sign them up as clients. And the major challenge that we had was these defendants were listed in the cases, but there were no addresses listed on the case to reach out to them. So we built an algorithm that actually tries to find the best match of an address for a person involved in the case, so that businesses can actually reach out to these people, offer their services to them. This algorithm is now almost 4 to 5 years old. It's quite accurate. It generates anywhere between 1 to 3 addresses per party, because if John Smith is being sued in Los Angeles, there could be thousands of John Smiths, right? So how do you find 3 John Smiths that are most likely to be the actual person being sued in that case? So we built an algorithm which actually generates these addresses and assigns probabilities to each of these addresses, saying, hey, this address is 70% likely to be the person being sued in this case, or 100% likely, depending on the number of addresses and several other weighting factors that we use to determine these addresses.
That's fascinating. And have you found that attorneys are interested in this use?
Yeah. Let me actually give you a couple of use cases that. So a lot of people do defense work. So, for example, I have an attorney that uses this that does civil rights defense. Okay, and so we've all heard of these stories, or at least most of us have, where you have that guy that owns a convenience store, right? And some guy pulls in, in a wheelchair, and then jumps off of his wheelchair and crawls up the sidewalk, into the door, crawls down the floor, gets a soda out of the cooler, comes back, pays for it, crawls back outside, and then a week later he's getting a demand, a lawsuit for a civil rights violation because he didn't have the proper ramp for the wheelchair.
Right.
So what this attorney would do is he would look for civil rights cases in Los Angeles that are filed, and most of those cases involved American Disability Act violations, which you could see from the docket, and then he would solicit the defendant on that for defense work, and that's what his specialty was. He was a great civil rights attorney when it comes with the American Disability Act.
Yeah.
So that's just like one example of, hey, if you're an attorney and there's certain case types you like that you do defense for, UniCourt would be a great tool to not only identify those cases being filed, but also to locate the defendants involved in the case for earning business.
Excellent. Ivan, as I can't see you, I'm going to go ahead and invite you to ask some of your more targeted questions on the startup side of things.
Actually, exactly. So this is the first time I'm using Huzza, and I wanted to see if I can ask the question via text on the right there. I don't know if you guys can see that. I went ahead and asked the question. It's more of a personalized question for both of you. I guess, what specifically got you guys passionate about this particular, addressing this particular pain point, and how did you get involved with UniCourt? Oh, there we go. I think I see it on the screen there.
Okay. I guess I'll start with that.
That.
Go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, for me, it was just it was honestly the challenge. After we started seeing this data from all the different courts, and Prashant's the same way. We're kind of problem solvers. That's kind of what we pride ourselves in being good at. And the thing I love about legal technologies in general is literally every day we run into something new. Every single court presents a different challenge to us. There's a reason why it's 2016 and we're still going to these outdated court websites to get information. And that's great. I love that challenge. Coming in every day and having new challenges and obstacles to overcome. And honestly, I've always kind of had a legal bent mind. I probably get that from my father. He likes legal stuff a lot as well. And I was used to working. We did a lot of work with attorneys, and the more and more I would talk with attorneys about this type of data and the use cases, it seems like every week someone tells me, "Oh, you could do this with that. You could do that." And where do you find businesses like that now, where you can? It's outside of technology that you can come to work every day and have a challenge So I think that was like the big motivator. And then once I got to a certain point, we invested so much time and energy into this project that, we were just determined to make sure it succeeded.
Excellent. That's excellent.
I got a couple follow-ups. Hold on, Nick.
To anybody starting something up, I always hear these people say like, the worst kind of business to have is the business that just barely makes it and drowns you for years. But, from my experience is the difference between startups that make it and not, I would say the majority of the time really just comes down to how long you're willing to hold on to that rope and keep climbing, because that's what it comes down to. How hard are you willing to work for day in and day out to make your company or project succeed?
Yeah.
So
I know you have a follow-up. Ivan's going to follow up, but can anybody else hear the dog barking in the background? I'm not sure which location that's at. I'm pretty sure it's not in my office. But
let me look around under the table. Nope, I don't see any dogs around here.
So if it's in your location,
that's me.
Is it okay? It's Prash. What you can do, Prash,
move to the next room.
It is just in between. If you just want to mute your mic in between questions, that'll work too. Ivan, go ahead with the next one.
Yeah. So once you settle, I guess on your side, you're sitting in India. How did you get involved in UniCourt? And just if you could tell us the story behind that.
Yeah, and I would probably ask the follow up of how you guys found each other as well.
So, do I hear myself?
Yep, we got you.
Good to go.
Okay, so I went to USC for my master's. I did my master's in computer science, and I was working for a company called Opnet Technologies in Washington, D.C. Can you guys hear me still?
Yep.
Okay. So I was working for a company called Opnet Technologies in Washington, D.C. I worked there for about 3 years. And in 2010, I wanted to do something on my own. So one fine day I quit. I came back to India, and I was one of the other founders of UniCourt, who's Ravi, who happened to be my acquaintance, said, "Hey, I have something exciting for you to work on." And I said, "What?" And he said, "You're going to aggregate a lot of legal data." And he said, "Legal?" Nobody had heard about legal much during that time. I asked a couple of my engineering friends, and they said, no one had clue about anything to do. Nobody had anything to do with legal. Okay. Then I said, fantastic. Right. I'm going to take it up, because if you want to find challenges, if you want to innovate, you have to find something new which people haven't tried before, right? And this seemed to be a perfect sort of fit for me. So I got introduced to Josh, and we immediately hit it off. Like we started doing this for the debt relief business, and we started aggregating all this data. We saw the amount of effort it took us to do that. So we said, hey, if nobody is doing it and we have started it, we definitely have a head start over anybody else who's going to try to do this in the future, right? Mm-hmm. So no stopping now, right? And then we went on from Los Angeles to several other courts, and now we have over 40 courts.
Definitely have a comparative.
Nick, kind of give you an idea of where we've scaled this to, Nick and Ivan. Right now we have over 60 gigabytes of structured text data. So to kind of give you a relative example of how much data that is, as of May 2015, the English version of Wikipedia had about 51 gigabytes of structured text data. And so to give you an idea, we're now holding more in court records in our databases than Wikipedia has in the English language.
That's incredible. Wow. That is incredible.
to give you an idea of the scale that's needed to really acquire this, we employ about 18 engineers, full-time engineers that just work on aggregating the data, normalizing it, standardizing it, putting it in the application, indexing it, serving it up. So yeah, it's no longer just a little pet project. It's really our goal at the end is to really, we want to have coverage over the whole entire United States.
That's fantastic, and a big job. I mean,
Yeah.
It's a huge job. There's no doubt about it. So I am not surprised that you guys have 18 engineers working on this, because that is a massive job. I wanted it. Now, we're unfortunately not in a platform that would allow us to screen share, but your analytics that you guys showed me at the LegalTech show, and just the way you could see it visually. Do you guys have a video or anything like that I could share in the chat for replay viewers? Is there anything like that available at this point?
We don't, but we're working on that
Okay.
with our alpha release. One of the challenges, here's the biggest challenge we've had with the analytics. It's that finding the charting tools or charting application for SaaS users. Unfortunately, a lot of the charting applications like, Tableau and some of the, leaders in that are great for businesses and organizations internally, but the pricing model is not conducive for SaaS models.
Okay.
Our goal is we want to be able to offer, analytics is, say, depending on the level of analytics, anything where basics included with the package. And so that's been part of our problem. So right now what we're working on is we're working with a couple companies that are interested in offering it on a SaaS model, where when we bed that within the application, we can have it go out to 100 or 1,000 users without a problem. So as soon as we get that worked out, I'll make sure we kick over a video for you of showcasing the analytics.
Excellent.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it doesn't necessarily have to be linked in with this video here, but one of the things that Ivan and I do, and we'll do it at the end of the show, is ask how we can continue to help you guys, because we want to promote the advancements in legal tech. That's kind of a big key of what we do here. So I'm happy to throw that.
Legal tech evangelists. You're
Evangelists, yeah. So with that, if I just got to queue it up to keep it pumping out on the social media platforms, then that's fine. We want to be able to provide that for folks. I would like to.
Great. Well, we're actually coming out with a whole series of videos on, what feature sets you can do with the product. It's kind of cool. So I'll pass some of the videos that are kind of, I feel like I get a lot of good response from attorneys or people that are using it for you guys to
That'd
share.
be great. I guess the next would be is, so you guys have got this. It would be more of the startup side of things. Have you guys been through seed rounds? Are you actively, and share what you can. If you can't share something, just let us know. We'll move on to the next question. But are you actively seeking financing at this point, or investments at this point? Because it is obviously a pretty big sized business now.
Yeah, so we've self-funded the project thus far. We're going to be going through another round of funding here in the next couple of months, mostly self-funded funding. We are actively looking for investments, it's been a very difficult market. I think that's one thing that we completely underestimated in this space was the ability to raise capital in legal tech is very difficult, very challenging. And, I couldn't seem to figure out why that was, because it seemed like there was a lot of, good companies coming out that had some great ideas, that had got, maybe not traction revenue wise, but had a pretty advanced product. I think what I've come to the conclusion is investors and the legal tech have realized traditionally how long it takes to break into the legal market. I think it's, trying to convince attorneys and law firms and, large organizations to adopt a product typically takes time. And I think that's been one of the biggest challenges for investors is that it's not like, technology where you can invest in something in 3-4 years, it might be a home run, right? I think in technology, your lifetime when you're investing in a company, you're looking at like 7 to 10 years out before that company will be, worth what you're looking for. So that's been the biggest challenge. Absolutely. We're looking to raise funds. Ideally, we'd like to raise an additional $3 million. I think we're going to at least cover $1 million of that coming up in our running funding. But yeah, it just comes down to finding the right person that gets what we're doing. At the end of the day, UniCourt is just a big data project. Okay. And we're aggregating, collecting data. We're no different than a Facebook or a Twitter or someone else that's collecting data. And really, our application is just a way for people to interact with that data.
That's great points. And I think that the one thing that I will add, because of my experience in legal tech for the last 6 years, is I think the difficulty with gaining financing in legal tech is the end user, the attorney end user, who they are notoriously difficult to get them to adopt new technology. And I think that may be one of the biggest things. So I'd like to go down that road. We got about 10 minutes left, but if you guys could take us down the road of how has the adoption rate been by those who are our current members? Is it a membership model? Okay.
Yeah, it's a subscription-based
model.
Yeah, it's a low-cost SaaS subscription. Monthly, no long-term commitment, month to month. The days of signing up with Lexis and a year commitment and all this stuff, if you're not even sure it's going to work for you, is it's over. So
how has the adoption rate been with attorneys? Okay, good.
It's been great. Honestly, the major firms that have used UniCourt are still using UniCourt, and they've actually been the big driver for a lot of the improvement. So we're getting to the point now where we're getting users and we're getting some really good feedback from these users. And to be honest with you, some of them have been our biggest champions. So if I can get into a firm and get them using UniCourt, it's rare. If I haven't heard a firm come back to me and say, this doesn't work for our use case. If they actually spend the time to learn the product. What we found, to be honest with you, Nick, is probably selling to the attorneys isn't the best approach. What we found is selling to the support staff. For the medium to large law firms, they'll have a technology person. If you can get all the technology people are interested in learning new technology. If you can get into those and show them and get a demo with UniCourt, they always turn that over to their support staff. If you can get your support staff to use it, then they typically become your champions to sell it to your firm or attorneys. And we found that seems to be the best route to selling to law firms.
I'm glad to hear that. And I think that's accurate by most of our previous guests. Seems to be the most accurate way to build your business. Selling to the attorneys can be difficult. Prash,
just one more point to add. I'm not sure if we covered this. So UniCourt is actually also it's a collaborative tool, which means it's meant for organizations. Okay. One of the things that we do is that traditionally law firms or paralegals who do the legal research are used to using a separate product for doing legal research, and when it comes to managing a case, they are used to using a separate product there, right? So if they had to share documents within the organization, say to their attorneys or even to clients, they are used to either sending them via email or probably using a different product. What we have done in UniCourt is basically the data that comes directly from the court. You can manage that data using our product. So you can basically do case management where the matter in that case is actually directly sourced from the court. So whenever the case gets updated, all the users who are associated with that case automatically start getting notifications on these are the new parties added, right? These are the new attorneys added. And we also do contextual reporting of changes to the case. So when a case is being tracked, we are able to identify what exactly has changed in that case from the last time it was tracked. So it's very easy for users, whether it's an attorney or a paralegal or even the client for that matter, of the attorneys, to communicate this data with them using our platform. So it sort of becomes a bridge for the communication, and you don't have to use multiple products to do different things.
That's
you can
nice.
even, you can upload documents and attachments, and immediately you get a notification from UniCourt, and you can access that document from within our application.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's kind of like, you do a search, you find a case, you then take that case and you can manage that case. So it's feeding all the data in. So now you have a litigation management tool that has all of your legal data fed and organized by cases.
Fantastic. And like you said, it's the fewer tools that they have to use, the better off. Because I think we're all having tool fatigue these days, right? How many different tools do we have to use for how many different platforms we manage? I guess I would be beyond funding, as I recall in my discussion with, I believe it was your CEO that was given. Was it you and the CEO at the LegalTech show, Josh? It was. Yeah,
it was me and James. Yep.
And I thought he had told me that your target market was the small to medium firms as opposed to big law, which we often hear legal tech companies trying to sell to big law. Is that accurate? Are you guys going for the smaller and medium sized firms?
Well, that's a great question. So here's what I'll say. The larger organizations will benefit the most from UniCourt. Okay, because they're the people ordering the most documents. They have hundreds, if not thousands, of cases, right, in their organization. So they're the people ordering lots of documents, updating lots of dockets. So they will benefit the most cost-wise from adoption of UniCourt. Okay. However, like, our pricing is meant for a small to medium-sized law firm. So I mean, can you find something for $199 a month, and you can have up to 9 users, collaborate, search, track, manage, all in one platform. So that's highly affordable for your smaller to medium-sized law firms. I'll kind of maybe quickly just run down kind of our target markets. Because I get asked this question a lot, and the simple answer is really anybody who's looking for legal data, and it's that simple. But let's break them into categories here. So we have your legal professionals, which are your law firms, attorneys, general counsels, paralegals, researchers, right? You have your businesses. So these could be like, for business research, business intelligence, investigators, people doing data analysis, and people wanting to market based on this data, or reporters. Okay. We have a lot of government agencies that use UniCourt. These would be things like municipalities, cities, law enforcement. So, for example, we have the city of Redondo Beach uses it. And how they uses it is the city farms out most of their litigation. And so what they use UniCourt for is, they're able to organize their cases in folders, organized by law firm that they farm that to. And then they can invite that law firm and just control access only to the cases that they're handling. So it's a great way now for general counsel and municipalities, people are involved in a lot of litigation who farm a lot of business out, to be able to actually manage the attorneys that they're farming the business out rather than the other way around. Nonprofits is a great one. So these would be trade and political organizations for intel, advocacy groups and foundations. Obviously, there's a big use case in academics and research. So those would be like the real kind of target markets that we're looking for. At this point, this isn't a consumer-facing product yet for individuals, but eventually, that's the plan. We'll get there.
So I mean, I think you do sum it up nicely when you say that your target market is anyone looking for legal data, because you just gave us a pretty wide variety of different end users who could benefit from the product. I mean, that's pretty impressive. And you guys, there were 2 analytics firms that really wowed me at that LegalTech show. You guys and another one who was more about gaining analytics on on parties to a suit, which I think would also have a real benefit for attorneys. But yours was just so robust. I was really impressed by it. We are at about the end of the show. Ivan, did you have any last questions for Josh and Prash?
I do, and you may have already asked them because as I was fading out, you asked about fundraising, what level of the startup is currently at. Are you in bootstrap mode still, and essentially just
we've been in friends and family. We tried to we kind of put some feelers out this year on raising. We had a lot of people that they were interested, but I will caution anybody in legal technology when these people come and say they're involved and they have a lot of connections and they say they want to check your company out. What we found is all of them, without exception, all of them will come and check out your product and tell you how great it is, and then you'll never hear from them again. So no matter what, I don't know if they're just doing intel for their own products or if they weren't interested. I don't know, but I'd be very cautious.
Yeah, I didn't notice that. I checked on AngelList, didn't see a profile for you folks unless you're under a different name. I'm not sure if you're
I'll have to talk to James
platform.
on that.
No, we are on AngelList. It's at it's just UniCourt there. It's not UniCourt Inc.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and
so
go ahead, Josh.
Not we're still open and we're not giving up on that. But really, the what's needed for legal technology for people to be excited about this is you got to have somebody who's got a legal domain that gets legal, okay, and you got to also have somebody who gets technology. And finding those two in the same room is very difficult. We're convinced there's somebody out there that gets what we're doing. We just haven't found him yet.
Excellent. And I want to thank you guys again. Prash, really thank you for following up about coming on the show. We had been in some transition because of platforms, so thank you. Just a side note for Ivan and replay viewers, I was walking around the LegalTech showroom, and Prash tweeted me after I had tweeted that I was there, and that's how and invited me while I'm walking through the showroom, invited me through Twitter to come over and check theirs out, which led to this today. And he also did follow up with me to get them on the show, and I appreciate that. You guys got a great team.
Sounds like Rishwain is a superstar nowadays, huh?
I don't know about that, my friend. I don't know about that.
He is. He is making the headlines on the LegalTech hashtag now.
I do make it.
Right.
That's from pumping out a lot of legal tech related hashtags.
You're doing a great job. We really appreciate you taking the time to have us on here.
No, it's my pleasure, man. This is one of those sectors where we all have to kind of come together and talk about those issues that we're all having difficulties addressing in the legal tech sector, because it's a very specific sector. So what can we? Sorry, that's all right, Ivan. Sorry that you had the connection issues. I'm glad you were able to come here with us today. This would be the last where we ask you guys what more we can do for you now and in the future to help promote a great business.
I'll just end with, we'd be happy to just give you guys some videos on some of the features that we're coming out with. Obviously, as we release new features, we'd be more than happy to come on and do some interviews. We have a lot of really cool use cases, so we're building some really use case based material, and I think we can maybe do some sessions on that for attorneys and legal professionals that would be interested in that type of use case.
Yeah.
I'll just thank all the viewers who are viewing this. If you guys want to learn more about UniCourt, you can check us out at UniCourt, UniCourt.com.
Good. That was going to be my last question: is where they get a hold of you guys, and Josh is ahead of the game on this. I'm going to post the UniCourt website in the chat. Again, it's UniCourt, UniCourt.com. With us today was, and Prash had told me to call him Prash, that's why I'm calling him Prash Shenoy, and Josh Blandi. Thank you guys very much for today. I'm glad we were able to make it work. 6 months down the road, when more's happening, we'll maybe have you back on 6 months, a year, when you guys have the time, and we'll talk about the difference from today and where you're at then.
Our pleasure.
And tweet me anytime something new comes out that I might find interesting and that I can help evangelize for you. And Ivan and I will get on that.
Absolutely.
Great. Thanks so much, Nick.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Ivan. We appreciate you guys. You guys are doing
I
great work.
appreciate it.
Keep
You
it
too.
up.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Nick. Thanks, Ivan. Bye.
Bye-bye.